Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to Season 5, and I believe it is episode 863 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada, always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Friday, March the 13th. Ooh. Our second Friday the 13th in a row, actually, because the 28 days in February, the days correspond to the weekday on in March. So a double Friday the 13th. Wonder when the last time that happened was. I'd have to look that up at some point. But I'm not particularly superstitious, so that's all right. I think that has to do with the fact that my mom was born on the 13th, so every now and then her birthday fell on Friday the 13th, and well, nothing bad ever happened. It was birthday, so birthdays are the day that you get to have the world celebrate you for deciding to grace the earth with your presence. It's the way I decide to see it. That's why it's my favorite day of the year. Darlings, I have arrived. Sometimes I wish I was conscious, because sometimes I think that's the way I probably came out into the world. Mother, I'm here. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him. Hey, Mr. Beaver, hey. And not with me as usual is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health today? I am doing pretty well, I have to say. Could have used a bit more sleep today. But unlike yesterday, I didn't have trouble waking up. Woke up at pretty much the same time. But yesterday I just couldn't get going, and today it was like, I could use another like 20 minutes or something. But I got up and was up and at 'em like I needed to be. Energy's good. My mental health is good. Um, I'm just in a good mood today. Maybe it's some spillover effect from the Lori Idlut floor crossing, because I mean, again, call me petty, but when things don't go well for Pierre, it kind of makes my day go pretty well. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm only human. Sue me. No, please don't sue me. uh, I don't know. That kind of does it for me. But I don't know if I had. I had mentioned it yesterday. The Conservatives have named their two of their three candidates. Still haven't named their candidate in Scarborough-Southwest that I know of. And like I said, wondering if they were keeping that spot open to see how Travis Dhanraj's testimony to committee went. Again, have not looked at it. To be totally honest, I have not been particularly interested in that story, especially after the whole Jamil thing, because the stories seem rather parallel to me. I'm sure there are differences, um, but two people get fired by their respective media. They claim some type of bias uh, of some kind, threaten to sue. Uh, you know, and then well, we saw what happened with Jamel. That allowed him to pave his way into the Conservative Party, and so people are kind of looking. Well, uh, what's the countdown until the Conservatives nominate Travis Dhanraj to run in Scarborough-Southwest? Um, who knows? Maybe Travis Dhanraj isn't even looking for that in any way, shape, or form. That's just some speculative joking based on past events. But yeah, for some reason, it's not something I've been seized with. I have um, people who do this. I have a list thing, or I've got news to share, and oh boy, when I share it, boy, is it ever going to be good. But I can't right now. But oh my God, trust me, I've got it, and it's good and it's juicy. That does, I don't know, it just doesn't appeal to me. It doesn't, rather than heighten my sense of curiosity, it just makes me instantly, and that's my bias, which I have to check every now and then. But it just makes me think, oh, this is person that's milking this for publicity, and I'm not, you know. uh, I'm not, not really into that. Now, if there's criminality or something like that, then I understand that sometimes you can't say. But just, this bad thing happened, and I'm going to blow the whistle. I really am. Any minute now, just ask me. I have the list. I'm going to reveal it, and he he goes to committee, and apparently there is this list, and he's got protection while he's testifying at committee, and doesn't reveal the list. Um, yeah, not not great. There's a um, conservative influencer out there as well has been saying the same thing about Matt Generou. Oh, I got this information. Oh boy, it would be so terrible if his wife knew. Just ask the staffers; they know. Am I going to be the one that releases it, but never actually releases it? I've got something juicy. I could tell the whole world. Click, click, clickbait, donation, donation, donation. Anytime now. Click, 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 donation, donation, donation. Oh, wouldn't it be terrible if I was the click, 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 donation, donation, right? Just milk that and keep stretching it out. So yeah, not that type of thing doesn't, like I said, doesn't pique my curiosity. It just sort of makes me turn away more than anything else. Because then my first question, being the skeptical sort that I am, is okay. Well, what's the motive here and who's benefiting? And I get more interested by that question than by what's on the list. But yeah, that kind of happened for those who are following that story. I can't say I know too much about it other than that, and then reading a few articles here and there about um, how that testimony that was supposed to have some bombshells and kind of stuff, you know, uh, didn't really. So we'll see. However, today we have some big news. Big news because, as you know, as we have been commenting on the show, that the Prime Minister is on his way to Norway to have a high level visit there and also to participate, well, not participate in, but I guess supervise or watch a major NATO exercise that would involve about 25,000 people from 14 different nations. Have some chats with the leader of Norway, have some chats with the leader of, well, the chancellor in this case, of Germany, who apparently will be there as well. Most likely, it looks like, at least for that portion, they will be talking submarines, among other things, because there is a joint Norway, led by Norway, with a German backing bid for one of the two bids that are being studied right now for our future submarine purchase. The other one comes from that's CKMS, I believe it is, and the other one's from Hanwha Ocean from South Korea. So that's going to happen, and then the prime minister is going to continue on to have meetings with Keir Starmer before taking a much deserved vacation. That some people, again, the usual suspects. Every time a prime minister takes a vacation, oh my God, I can't believe he's taking a vacation. Oh my God, at a time like this, oh, right, because there's ever a good time to take a vacation, especially in this current timeline when there's a prime minister, because there's never anything batshit cray cray going on in the world for the past 5 years, at least. I mean, even more than the past 5 years. What, we're 2006 now, so the past 5 years, 2001, and we were in the COVID thing. So yeah, since December, well, basically you could say since Trump's first term started, but let's say since December 2019, it's like there have been plenty of moments over the past 6 years where there's been not much going on in the world that would require a prime minister to be there because something bad could happen. Ah, you can't take a vacation. So, yes, after a full year, pretty much, of working very hard, traveling the globe, let's try that again, traveling the globe, and signing all these deals, getting into all these arrangements, trying to create different trading blocks, or as he's calling it, um, oh God, God, I can't remember the name for it, but something geography. I can't remember. It's not asymmetric as well, but um, you know that group of countries that kind of agree that want to agree to follow some type of rule-based order, and where they can make various coalitions on various topics as they need. That type of geography. I should have noted that word because it was a very good term. I'll find it. I have it in my notes somewhere from a past show. Um, but to create that type of system, and to be spearheading that, trying to join the CPTPP blocks and the CETA blocks together, also, trying to create an alternate uh, network for refining, and a marketplace for critical minerals. All these various initiatives that he is taken part in, or spearheading around the world, as well as trying to pivot our economy to be more U.S. proof and more globally connected, so it is uh, more resilient to shocks coming from a single point of failure, which in our case is our relationship with the United States on pretty much everything. Um, and as I mentioned on yesterday's show, about a year of in terms of that hockey analogy, seeing the prime minister working hard in the corners and along the boards to dig out the puck. Um, I'm not sure those attacks on "I can't believe he's taking a vacation now" are going to land, or that there's going to be much receptivity to this, but particularly in the context, if you're looking at public opinion polling, of voters who are approving of the current leadership that we are having in Canada. I remember some numbers yesterday on the Polling Canada page here. Very interesting to me. One of them was really struck me as interesting, because a lot of people are saying that Mark Carney is, this progressive conservative prime minister we've had in a long while, and it seems that there was a polling company um, asked that question specifically, um, about whether or not um, they perceive the Carney government as being a progressive conservative government or not. So the question was, do you agree or disagree that Mark Carney's government feels like a progressive government to you? 23% said unsure, 35% agreed, so, over a third of the population, but 42% disagreed, which is interesting. I've seen some comments here. It's a weird one. It feels inherently more conservative after a decade of Trudeau and Carney. Feels like he could have ran for the Conservatives PCs like 10, 20, or 30 years ago. But increasingly, he just seems like a centrist PM trying to form some sort of grand coalition. And other people saying here, it's a centrist liberal government, moderate, measured, calm. It's what Canadians want. And then goes on to say something Pierre Poilièvre either doesn't understand or is simply unwilling to accept. And that's John Shuchuk. These are just various comments here on Twitter. And then there's another one here. Disagree. Progressive conservatives would not oppose expansion of the oil and gas sector now, nor would they support legally redefining hate as an emotion, which is inconsistent with the rulings of the Supreme Court. They would not support restricting religious speech nor support warrantless searches. In short, the Liberals under Carney are just as far left as under Trudeau. I don't think that that's a comment that's particularly tethered to reality, because the current government is not opposing expansion of the oil and gas sector, actually never has been talking about making Canada an energy superpower in conventional and renewables. Nobody is legally redefining hate as an emotion. We already have a definition of hate crimes. It has nothing to do with emotions. It has to do with actions that are words that are said, and saying words to me is an action that are taken to invite or encourage harm upon a community. That's not emotions. That's defining hate as specific actions here. There's no support for restricting religious speech because, and that's again, when we were having the debate about marriage equality all those years ago, that was the exact same thing that they were saying. Oh my God, if we let the gays get married, they're going to send me to jail if I say that my God doesn't support gay marriage or my church doesn't support gay marriage. And they press the fear and the outrage button and try to get people to oppose it based on stuff like that. And, to my knowledge, not one single person has even come any close to getting charged or has even received a ticket for saying that they're not down with equal marriage, even though it's the law. So that's the thing that they always go to. They're going to censor you. They're going to make verses of scripture criminal. It's like, no, they're not. But if you decide to use or abuse of scripture as a shield to hide behind it in order to invite or promote or encourage hate, violence to be caused upon a group, well, then, yeah, you can't just turn around anymore and say, well, my scripture says that I can. It doesn't. And you shouldn't. So it has nothing to do with that. So yeah, the Liberals under Carney are just as far left as under Trudeau. There's nobody who's remotely connected or tethered to reality who believes that. All right. So yeah, that was kind of an interesting number that I saw there. And then of course, there's more there with regard to just the general approval of the government by Canadians. Looking at some numbers here that I saw the other day, but it's, how would you put it? It's a very, very broad support, even across parties. Like voters who would support first another party still are approving of what this government did. Some other polling information that came out here is interesting question. Does Mark Carney's government feel more like a fourth term of a Liberal government or the first term of a new government? For Liberal voters, says it feels more like a first term, 56%, and 26% says it's a fourth term. And as you would know, for Conservatives, it's almost the exact flip. 58% say that it feels like a fourth term of a Trudeau government, but 26% of them says it feels like a first term of a new government. So even a quarter of Conservative voters that are not predisposed to seeing all Liberals as being the same. for overall, all Canadians together, about 40% of Canadians see it as a first term and 35% see it as a fourth term, with 25% of them saying they are unsure about that. Oh, darn, I wish I could find that number for you. Also, if we are looking at favorability in Liaison's poll out March 7th, it was asked about Poilièvre specifically by age group. And there is not an age group at all that sees Pierre more favorably than unfavorably. So the Conservatives, who have been boasting for a long time, well, we've got the young ones, 18 to 34-year-olds, 47% view him unfavorably and 44% view him favorably. And as you get older, the numbers get worse for Pierre. 35 to 49s, 51% unfavorable, 39% favorable, 50 to 64, 55% unfavorable, 33% favorable, and 65 and older, 64% unfavorable, and 27% favorable. And I'm old enough to remember a time when the 65 plus demographic was a demographic that the Conservatives had on lock. About the question about the Prime Minister going on all these trips and there being just photo ops don't yield results. According to Spark Insight, they asked, do you think foreign trips, trade investments in Canada should be a priority for the Prime Minister, or should he do less of this and focus on other priorities? 69% say that these foreign trips should be a priority for the Prime Minister, and only 31% say they should not be. So the Conservatives are on the wrong side of that issue as well. So a lot of that is the Conservative rhetoric at the moment is just trying to keep the red meat base satisfied and happy, because again, it's just not happening for Pierre. Yeah, for some reason, there we go. Federal government approval. In Quebec, 69% approval. In Ontario, 67% approval. In Atlantic Canada, 65% approval. Mark Carney approval polling, that's from Spark Insight, from Liaison. Mark Carney approval polling in Atlantic Canada, 71% approve. In Saskatchewan, Manitoba, 56% approve. In British Columbia, 58% approve. So in the data that I was specifically looking for, here's another one here from Liaison. Mark Carney approval polling in Alberta, 54% approve. Majority approval even in Alberta. Ontario, 70% approve. Quebec, 63% approve. But the data that I was looking for specifically was asking people by political party. There it is. This is March 6th, Spark Insight. Of those who voted Liberal in the past election, 94% still approve of the job that Mark Carney is doing. People who voted NDP, or say that they vote NDP, 59% approve of the job that Mark Carney is doing. Of the people that vote Bloc, 51% disapprove, 49% approve. So a little more disapproval for the Bloc than approve, but it's pretty much 50-50 down the line, which, when you consider the Bloc and what their mandate, their mission is, 49% approval, or basically 50-50 approve, disapprove, is really good for a federalist prime minister. And of course, for the Conservatives, 63% disapprove, but 37% approve. So there's a third of voters that could typically be considered to be reliable, for the most part, Conservative voters who still approve of the job that Mark Carney is doing. So a lot of this rhetoric also about, Lori Idlett crossing the floor, and people suggesting that, it has to be according to the will of the people and whatnot, and you didn't ask the people. According, if we're basing on public opinion polling at the moment, and when we looked at the 4 seats specifically, where they stand now based on 338, it seems that the public actually does approve, and that the public would vote all 4 of them back in. Now, for Lori Idlett, that data is very premature. I'm sure that nobody's actually polled on that one. But during the election, she didn't win the seat for the NDP um, by a lot, right? I think it was a very small percentage here. If I'm, let me just go and look at the results. 2025 Canadian federal election. Um, yeah, looked for the NDP got 37.26% of the vote, and the Liberal candidate Kilikvac Kabluna at the time got 36.72. So she won by 41 votes. That's it. So, and she herself says that a lot of people were viewing her stances as the NDP candidate as more complaining than wanting to be part of the solution. And so, on the advice and the urging of her constituents, according to her, she made the jump. So, and it seems that if you were looking at 338, whatever polling there is up there, which is very imperfect, and the margins of errors are much higher up there, but it seems to be indicating that the Liberals would have won that seat too if there was an election to happen. So this seems to have legitimacy. And another point that was made is that they're saying, oh well, Mark Carney is going to achieve his government through um, these dirty backroom deals and illegitimate ways. Well, no, because if Mark Carney is at 170 right now and there are 3 by-elections, it's going to be as a result of an election that Mark Carney is going to achieve a majority government if he does, if 2 of those 3 seats go into the Liberal column. It won't be a floor crosser that will have flipped the government. It will come through an election. I mean, if the Conservatives and the Bloc still want to campaign on, do you really want this guy, Mark Carney, to have a majority? Do you really want to put all the power in his hands? They can still try that. Not sure how fruitful it's going to be for them and what a good expenditure of money it's going to be, but they can still try that. So even that line of attack or that line of whining has gone out the window. I was talking to Kit Hugh the other day online, and Kit Hugh not only sees this as um, Mark Carney doing things that appeal both to the center right and center left, and people that, again, understanding the immediacy and urgency of the moment, want to join in and participate in that rather than be in parties that either don't have the full ability to do that in the case of the NDP because they don't have party status and don't have enough speaking time and part time on committees and all that kind of stuff, or the Conservatives, who we know from past campaigning and things that we have heard reported in the papers that they have a leader that blocks his own MPs for applying for programs on behalf of their constituents, like public transit funding and housing funding, the Housing Accelerator Fund. It's like, no, you can't do that because if you go and take money from that, then you're validating the Liberal program as good, and we can't validate anything the Liberals do as good. So your people, your constituents must suffer and not get that allocation of funding through the Accelerator Fund because it will make me look bad if it works. No, you cannot have nice things. So we have one party that's, even if they could be doing things in a serious way, is not as effective as it could be because it does not have party status and access to the resources and the speaking time and all that kind of stuff. And then we have one party that is just obstructing and not willing to row in the same direction as the rest of the team, no matter how many tonal resets or makeovers its leader gets. We always come back to the same message: not willing to help for all intents and purposes. I mean, Poilièvre is going on this trip to the US at the moment, right? And not going to Washington, D.C., allegedly because he believes that we only have one government at a time and doesn't want to confuse things, which, if we take that at face value, is a fine enough answer to explain the fact he's not going to DC. But we're also talking about the guy who spent his entire time since the election has been over saying, I understand that I lost. Well, sorry, no, I can't say I understand that I lost the election because we can't actually get him out loud to say I lost, as we saw in the year in interviews. But more like, um, even though we didn't win the election, even though I got the shiniest silver medal in Canadian political history, watch me shine it, watch me shine it, watch me shine it. Um, the government should impose our plan that Canadians projected rather than their plan that Canadians voted for. He seems to have no problem trying to make it like there can be a different prime minister or two prime ministers here. So I'm not sure why that would change when he's stateside. um, but there was an interesting uh, article yesterday in Politico by Mickey Jurich, reporter for Politico Canada, um, that is that gave an idea as to what could be the issue at play here for Pierre, and one of the reasons that he might not be going to DC that has nothing to do with their not wanting to compete with the prime minister. In the fall of 2024, Pierre Poilièvre, leader of Canada's Conservative Party, held a commanding lead in the polls and looked set to be the next prime minister. After Donald Trump's election that November, allies of Poilièvre advised him to visit Washington and show he could engage with Trump. Poilièvre refused, insisting that cost of living politics mattered more. It was a disastrous miscalculation. Backlash against Trump and his trade agenda upended Canadian politics, crushing Poilièvre's lead and even costing him his seat in Parliament. Now, as Poilièvre prepares for another election, he is finally trying to break into Trump's Washington. The problem is many Republicans have already written him off. Quote, I was struck by how insular Mr. Poilièvre and the Conservative Party was, former U.S. Ambassador to Canada David Cohen, who served under former President Joe Biden and had advised Poilièvre to engage with Trump, told Politico. Quote, they have very little to no relationship in the United States or in any other country for that matter. One GOP operative went even further, quote, they don't respect him. The operative said of Washington Republican circles, which shapes how Trump's allies are engaging with Canadian conservatives. In addition to all the ill will Poilièvre is facing, he's also up against the diplomatic reality of a White House that assumes it will be dealing with Prime Minister Mark Carney's Liberal government for the foreseeable future. Quote, in Canada, it seems the ruling class looks at Poilièvre as some version of Donald Trump, but over here he's viewed more like someone who's going to lose, and lose politely, the operative said. Ouch. From Ottawa to Washington, Politico spoke to more than a dozen officials, including the Republican operative, 6 Conservative MPs, and several officials familiar with Canada-US trade talks for insight into Poilièvre's approach with Canada's biggest ally. They were granted anonymity to speak freely. Poilièvre has not forged the relationship required to become a, quote, serious partner for any Republican administration, the GOP operative said, whether under Trump or someone else. Quote, he doesn't have a relationship with the U.S. That's the thing, he said. The only thing people here know about Poilièvre is that apple crunching video and that he lost an election he should have won. Ouch. So pretty much the way he was with Ford in Houston, he was with the United States. Doesn't make any contacts. And if you remember, Justin Trudeau, again, had all the leaders of the opposition in for a meeting in January 2025 and asked them to work their personal contacts. Pierre Poilièvre was the only one who refused to do so. He seems to be finally getting around to it now, but it seems he doesn't really have many contacts. I can't be helpful, but watch me go to Washington. Watch me go to the United States anyway, and I can't admit that it can't be helpful. So I'm just going to say I'm not going to DC because there's only one prime minister at the time, rather than say, well, because nobody likes me there and I don't measure up. A spokesperson for Poilièvre did not respond to multiple requests for an interview or to questions through email. Gee, I wonder why. During Canada's federal election last spring, those within the Conservative Party considered Canada-US relations a blind spot for Poilièvre. While he had made affordability his signature issue, he brushed off concerns about Trump's tariff threats, which have since squeezed Canada's economy, which is why Pierre now says that he's the perfect guy to be negotiating trade. And one of his speeches that he made some time ago, he suggested that Canada form some type of all-party committee to be able to go down there, and Conservatives would happily participate in that. Like, and what have you done over the past 3 years as leader to indicate that you could be trusted with such an issue? And I mean, it's not like we haven't done this before. I think, was it Stephen Harper who named Gary Dewar, who was an NDP premier of Manitoba, I think it was, to the position, I think it was, of ambassador to the United States at one point. So, I mean, it's not unheard of that a prime minister picks someone from another party to play a key role in our relationship with the United States. But what is it there in Pierre's track record, even if the prime minister would have been so inclined to do that, that would have made it such that they would have picked him? You can't just show up. You can't be a dick for 3 years, completely punch down on Canada, tell everybody who will listen how it is it's broken, and how the government of the day can't do anything right no matter what. And then say, hey, but you could trust me to act on behalf of the government and in the best interest of the nation. You kind of have to do the work before that to identify yourself as someone who could be trusted with that responsibility. And well, that's not Pierre. Foreseeing the political headwinds, Conservative MP Randy Hoback, who has maintained relationships in Washington since first being elected in 2008, was Poilièvre's point man on Canada-US trade, and he mapped out how the party should approach Trump's second term. He produced a 70-page report on Canada-US relations after consulting 290 stakeholders and holding 26 roundtables. Two people familiar with the report said Poilièvre never read it, a claim his office denies. So somebody did the work. But Pierre knew better. So he didn't bother reading that work. Now he denies, so yeah, I read it. Well, if you read it, then why didn't you act on it? Because as the article goes on, quote, the report was given to the leadership and it was not acted on, said an official who saw the report. The report included recommendations that resemble Carney's current approach to Washington, which relies on a coalition of stakeholders in Canada and the U.S. to not only defend the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, but also push back against Trump's tariffs by arguing they are attacks on the American people. Quote, the report, it's exactly what Carney is talking about, said one official familiar with the recommendations, which Politico has not seen. Maybe Randy Hoback should have been running for the leadership of the Conservative Party. Just saying. Despite the guidance, Poilièvre continued to frame his election campaign on cost of living issues, even as the ballot box question clearly became about which leader would be best to handle Trump. But since Pierre can't pivot and can't think on the fly, he was committed to his bit, and he went down with the ship. The Conservative Party didn't tune into what was going on in the United States almost purposefully, an official connected to Canada-US trade talks told Politico. Quote, they were very disciplined in focusing on nursery rhymes, cost of living, and taxes. Ooh, ouch. After Poilièvre lost the election, Hoback was removed from his Canada-US trade critic role and replaced with Conservative MP Shelby Cramp-Newman, a close Poilièvre ally. Yes, because rather than recognizing he was right all along and changing your strategy now, let's remove the guy who was right all along, because now that will be embarrassing to me. And as we saw in previous stories about how Pierre keeps his caucus controlled, nobody undercuts the leader. I guess there was probably material to undercut the leader there. So, yeah, he was replaced. Because clearly, probably not pure enough, I guess. Cramp-Newman has held the post for 10 months, a role Poilièvre said would help improve his party's ties with Washington, but people involved in Canada-US trade discussions say they've never encountered her in that capacity. 4 people familiar with trade talks, include 2 senior government officials, had the same reaction when her name came up. Who? That's always a good sign. Internally, there have been questions about the Conservative Party's approach with Washington. Conservative lawmakers do travel to D.C. to meet their U.S. counterparts, but the details are rarely revealed. The party also has an improvised approach. Some MPs go through the leader's office before heading to Washington, while others lean on personal networks, like Jamil. Poilièvre approved Cramp Newman's trip to D.C. last month, but she wouldn't tell Politico who met with. That's always inspiring. Yes, yes. I'm going to Washington, D.C. I'm going to meet with some very important people in the United States who, I'm not going to tell you. Poilievre's office said it was, quote, with representatives on both sides of the aisle, political leaders and stakeholders. Yes, yes, yes. Sure, Jan. Conservative MP Andrew Scheer, who was part of Poilievre's leadership team, led a delegation to D.C. in December. Scheer told Politico he doesn't remember who they met with. He just doesn't remember. Oh, that old Harpernesia has me in its spell. Yes, yes. The President of the United States, our single most important trade relationship, according to conservatives, and according to the numbers, of course, the trade relationship, the Prime Minister should not be traveling all around the world trying to negotiate other deals to shore against, because he should be spending all his time making sure he gets that non-existent and not on the table unless we join as a 51st state tariff-free deal with the United States. Former leader of that party, House leader for that party, in the current moment, where Kuzma is up for review, went just to December, and already can't remember who he met with. How is that possible, given the current context where everything is Trump and there's an existential threat to our country, and he's starting to annex us? How is that possible that you can go to the United States as a former leader of your party and current House leader and not remember who you met with? One. Two, don't you have people to jot that down somewhere? And if not, what were the people who were supposed to jot it down doing with that other hand while you were on that trip to not be able to jot that down? Inquiring minds would like to know. They think we are stupid. I don't remember. Really? It was your wedding day. Say, who was your maid of honor? Who was your best man? I don't remember. Really? Your wedding day. You don't remember who you chose as your maid of honor and your best man? Really? It's like there's an expression in French. Il nous prend pour des cruches. They take us for empty urns of water that they need to fill us with. I don't remember who you. My God, jeez, I'd be sitting there. Yeah, you do. Think. I got time. I don't remember who I met with. Oh my God. These people, I tell you, man. Oh man, man, man. Ooh, I'm seeing something in the chat about cake, and now my mind just went squirrel. Kid Linda, it must be some pretty damaging names if he's claiming he doesn't remember. Maybe he was high. Oh my God. Yes. Andrew Scheer, hi. There's a visual. Playing with 3D. Can't remember or won't say. Same thing at times. Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Oh my God. Jeez. I can't remember. Oh my God, these people are so dumb. Conservative MP Jamil Javani, a law school friend of Vice President J.D. Vance, used his own network to meet Trump and members of his cabinet last month, bypassing Poilievre's office. Ahead of that trip, one official said a conservative MP tried to block Javani from meeting certain officials in Washington. In early 2024, when Poilièvre was largely expected to become Canada's next prime minister, he was advised by Cohen, then the ambassador, to start making contact with people in Trump and then presidential candidate Kamala Harris's orbit, advice Poilièvre didn't take seriously. Quote, "It wasn't done in any robust sense, let's put it that way," Cohen said. Poilièvre was canceled that building relationships in Washington and state capitals with the business community and among civic leaders would benefit him personally and strengthen the Conservative Party's brand in Washington, whether he became prime minister or not. But yeah, he wasn't interested in that. People involved with Canada-US trade talks say it's too late for Poilievre to start engaging with the Trump administration, even as he attempts to sell himself as someone who can out-negotiate Trump by using Canada's energy and resources as a bargaining chip. And I'm sure that him being all over TV saying that he could out-negotiate Trump would really make Trump open to wanting to meet him and spend time with him. Quote, Mark Carney's failure to get a deal with the United States, a deal he promised by July 21st, 2025, no, is the way we continue to find ourselves floundering in the middle of a trade war, a spokesperson for Poilievre's office said in a statement. Diplomacy is the purview of the federal government, and Conservatives have offered their help in every conceivable way to get a deal. Conservatives have offered their help in every conceivable way. Have you seen any of that, kits and cubs? Have you seen them tripping over their dicks to rush to the prime minister's door and say, "How can we help? What do you need? Just give us a task, and we will accomplish it in good faith." I must have missed those moments, and given that the help was offered in allegedly every conceivable way, I missed those many moments, because I can conceive of a lot of ways one could be helpful or offer to help. Unfortunately, the Liberals have not taken us up on the offer. Gee, I wonder why. Number one, was it even made? And number two, after seeing how Jamil was helpful, gee, I wonder why you weren't taken up on your offer. After making a strategic decision not to travel to Washington or abroad, a misstep that party insiders say cost him politically, Poilievre took his first international trip last week, visiting London and Berlin, where he pitched a new coalition to shield Canada as U.S. pressures on allies intensifies. This week, he's making his first trip to the U.S. as leader, visiting Michigan, Texas, and New York while avoiding D.C. Poilievre said he isn't traveling to Washington because he believes in the rule of one prime minister at a time. Quote, and then lifting stuff from Mark Carney's speeches, Canada can't control every decision made in Washington, and I'll leave the negotiating up to our government, Poilievre said in a video statement Wednesday. But we can leverage the goodwill and shared interests with the American people. When Carney won the Liberal leadership last March, succeeding Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister, he was, like Poilievre, advised through various channels to start building a relationship with Trump and his allies. Quote, when you're dealing with this particular administration and the current political climate here, it's so incredibly transactional. And if you don't have something to offer them, they're not interested, a Canada-US trade official said. Carney took the advice to heart, and the Trump administration noticed, an official who was familiar with the guidance given to both leaders said. In the middle of Canada's federal election, Trump went on Fox News and declared he'd rather deal with a Liberal than a Conservative in Canada. Quote, the Conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine, Trump said on the Ingraham angle in a March 17th interview. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal actually with a Liberal. So when the Conservatives keep on saying that Donald Trump said that he preferred Mark Carney to win because he could better control. No, he said, I think it would be easier to deal with a Liberal. Because he doesn't go on TV and say negative things. Vance even joked about Poilievre while dining with Musk in December 2024 that, quote, it's not entirely clear it's better for us to have a Mitt Romney with a French accent as a prime minister. Showing how much he knew about Pierre, because Pierre does not have a French accent. Didn't even know that Pierre doesn't even have a French accent. He was already dismissed. Carney has since had his own challenges dealing with Trump. caught the president's ire following his Davos speech, where Carney encouraged middle powers to rise up against American hegemony and for his growing ties with China, prompting Trump to mock him as, quote, governor, and threaten more tariffs that he immediately then tackled himself on. But the president's comments during the election were striking. Weeks earlier, Poilièvre had the backing of Trump allies and even an endorsement from Musk, and he was so proud of that, who went on to briefly serve in Trump's cabinet at a time when it appeared Poilièvre would unseat Trudeau. Instead, Poilièvre lost the election to Carney, a rookie politician, and his own seat in Parliament, which forced him to run in another district to maintain the title of Canada's opposition leader, his own dirty backroom deal. But he's against those things, though. Yes, he hates those backroom deals. Four officials that Politico spoke to pointed to those comments by the president and Poilièvre largely disappearing from Republican conversations on X as proof as Poilièvre's lack of profile and respect in Washington. Quote, they were so confident they were going to win the election, they didn't even bother making any attempts to make inroads. An official connected to trade talks told Politico. Now some officials argue the time has passed. Quote, this is a guy who does not know how to win a race, the GOP operative said. There's no one here that believes he will ever be prime minister. Ouch. Ouch. Brutal. Just brutal. It's mean that I'm taking such delight in this. Oh my God, that's so terrible. Oh my word, jeez. So getting back to what that's a big parenthesis there, because I was talking about a conversation with Kit Hugh that I had, and one of the reasons he thinks that approval might be so high is because, and it's manifesting in who it is that he is attracting, is that one could maybe argue that Carney is creating, for all intents and purposes, his own all-party wartime government. Usually, well, not usually, but I guess historically, when there have been big wars, sometimes there has been sort of more of a unity type government, where there haven't been indeed input from people from various parties coming together because there was something in the national interest that was so important that everybody agreed to put partisanship aside for a moment, or at least for that thing. And that could be what's going on here. So yeah, if we look at it that way, if we look at it as a trade war is indeed a war, and we see again that we have a neighbor to the south that is willing, more than willing, in fact, eager to drop bombs on other nations or invade them or seize their leaders, kill or kidnap. That could be a question. That could be the question, given that the moment we're in. According to an article by Rachel Aiello in CTV News here, experts and political insiders say that there's three main driving factors at play for Carney's sort of crossover appeal. One, the moment Canada and the world is in. That could be one. I'm not surprised to see colleagues which are doing soul searching. I want to be at the decision table. I want to be there, said Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne, of course. The world wants to be more engaged with Canadians. I think that's what you're seeing, a number of people saying, I want to be part of that journey. So, one would be the moment that Canada, the world is in. Second, the Liberals' rising support in the polls. Canadians are giving this government legitimacy. Um, According to pollster Nick Nanos, it says it shows right now that the trajectory is favoring Mark Carney and the Liberals, and they're opening up a significant lead. He's drawing support or drawing attraction or focus from people across the political spectrum. Um, University of Alberta professor in political science, uh, Jared Wesley, a co-author of the book No I in Team, Party Loyalty in Canadian Politics, says, these are folks that are democratically elected. We send them to Ottawa to make decisions, and sometimes they make decisions to cross the floor. Wellesley said that by their nature, many of these deals are done behind closed doors, and while there may be discontent from members of the parties these MPs are leaving, that should be taken with a grain of salt. Quote, because some of them, although the NDP is standing out in principle against floor crossing and wouldn't accept floor crossers, they say, when the shoe is on the other foot, many of them are more than happy to welcome folks into their own caucus. Floor crossings are fairly rare. They have only been several hundred in federal and provincial politics dating back to the 1980s. When they happen, though, they seldom happen in isolation, so it's not unusual to see one floor crossing begetting another, which leads to another series as folks start to reconsider their electoral prospects. And the third reason is the leadership struggle in other parties. With the NDP not looking like it will be coming back anytime soon, and the Conservatives either not being able to acknowledge that their leader is the problem and seemingly not having any bench depth to replace him, according to what Conservatives seem to be saying. There's nobody better. That could be the case here. Professor Wesley says it's not just that they're attracted to the leader that they're joining, but they're also, in some cases, being repelled by a form or style of leadership that they're leaving. Political analyst Lori Williams says, I think there's a very good chance that once the leadership race is finalized, there's a chance that some of the folks that are currently in the NDP caucus may choose either to sit as independents or to cross the floors to the Liberals still. There are rumors of other Conservatives that might be in play, and I would assume that the government is lavishing those people with attention, trying to make that decision a little bit easier for them, said CTV News political analyst Scott Reed. So yeah, and Stephen McKinnon, House Leader, seems to also be confirming when he's having these discussions and scrums with the media that there could be more Conservatives. And he seems to say it rather definitively. Oh, I think so. So yeah, we'll see what is to happen yet. But that's a little bit of the stuff that's going on there. And I just remember having that conversation with you. That, yeah, if we are looking at this government that has now Liberals and some Conservatives that have joined in one NDP as a sort of more like a wartime government, big broad tent, that could be indeed what is going on, what Mark Carney is doing. He's not securing himself a majority government through dirty backroom deals, but is actually forming a legitimate wartime government that has cross-party support. You get to choose your own adventure here and pick the narrative that best suits what you see going on. But I thought that was a pretty good perspective here. One of the things as well that could be in play is people worried that if you give the government too much power, again, that they can override people. And I think this is one of the things that some people might prefer with having a slim majority achieved at ballot box through the by-elections rather than the government, and then, declaring prorogue in the House, having a new speech from the throne and taking control of the committees rather than having a whole new election where they might come up with an overwhelming majority, is that there would still be debate and opposition, but perhaps more of the opposition would come or the debate would come from the Liberal backbenches, as we just saw with that vote on arms sales, where 15 Liberals did cross and vote with the NDP on their motion there, or the private members bill, I should say. That could maybe come that type of opposition might come from there because, as Althea Raj properly and astutely noted on the at issue panel, I think was yesterday, is that yes, some of the bills were delayed, but the bills are indeed markedly improved. There was that big sort of omnibus bill that the government came in at first that had a whole bunch of weird things in it that would have made Stephen Harper, um, you know, um, have to light a post-coital cigarette if they had passed. And there was a lot of opposition to them, and it seems that that bill has been being broken down into smaller bills now for each of the things that were in them, and each of the things are definitely much more um, well written. I think one was I think the bill was C2, and there was a portion of it about searches um, that is now broken off, and I think is now called C22, and uh, the bill now, as I amended now, as I understand it, and this is far from my area of expertise, is that if police want to get some information that they need to get, online information, they can now ask the service providers, is this number or is this account number something, one that your company provides services to? And if they say yes, then they have to go get a warrant to be able to find out what's in there rather than just saying, I want what's in there. So that's a much better drafting of the bill, and then the definition of what service provider, had to be really firmed up because some people will turn on. Well, if you talk about electronic service provider, if I went and got my haircut and I paid by credit card, did that person provided a service and there's an electronic record of it? Would they have to say yes? This person came here to get a haircut. So so that the wording there had to be titled to electronic service providers specifically, and and just say like, do you provide, uh, does your company provide these electronic services to this account? And once you can certify that that is indeed the case, then you can go and say, we suspect that this account would have evidence that would help us in this investigation. Then you have to do all the things to get a warrant. So that's a much more clearly written bill that has a much less opportunity to creatively interpret the terminology in it to make it broader than it seems, and it includes those safeguards. So, you know, this is the reason why opposition is good, why we say oppose and propose, right? Because conservatives can be for having increased police powers uh, to be able to search electronic records, particularly in very high emergency cases, but that needs to be balanced with the safeguards and the civil liberty protections and all that kind of stuff, because that's very, very easy to abuse. And therefore, your writing, your language, when you're doing that type of law, has to be so precise, every freaking comma, right? Very, very precise, so that your civil liberties are not overrun. And so legislation has gotten stronger as a result of this. And it could be that, when you have a 30 or 40 seat majority, maybe that bill would have passed through as originally written. And there could have been a lot of embarrassing things and inconvenient things that have happened as a result. So, again, doing the hard work of reading the things clause by clause and how could this be interpreted? How could this be misinterpreted? How could this be reinterpreted? And making sure that your language is very, very precise, particularly on crime bills, is very, very important. So, it might actually be safer for everyone, indeed, because we are dealing with a rookie government in some ways, that it be a slim majority in that sense to ensure that bills are properly written. And of course, with only a a 1 or 2 seat majority, again, if enough people are absent and all that kind of stuff, so you still need the goodwill. If you whip a vote and you actually get everybody in the house, you don't need everybody. But how often does that happen, really, in a parliament? Given how Canada is a big country and many constituency MPs are in their constituencies or doing work or somewhere at an announcement or having a meeting with stakeholders somewhere off-site. Um, that's a little trickier to do, right? So it would not be the argument of unchecked power wouldn't necessarily be that strong. Moving on to the main talk today, the Prime Minister. on his way again to Norway, made a stop in Yellowknife, and had some major announcements to make with regard to Arctic sovereignty. The best number that I have comes from iPolitics, indicating that there could be up to, or there was up to $38.6 billion of announcements uh, made for the North uh, over a certain period of time. Um, but that this tranche here talks specifically about, well, maybe about 32 billion, could be a little more in his press availability. The prime minister said greater than 40 billion, so I'm not exactly sure what the full number would be here. But 38.6 is the number I saw with iPolitics in terms of uh, total commitments that could be made um, context of the push to increase Arctic sovereignty. Um, and this here was indeed a major announcement um, because one, it's probably the biggest single announcement of a commitment to the North that any prime minister has ever made. Um, and at the same time, there are three new projects that will be sent to the major projects office as a result of this announcement. Um, I'm going to uh, go to the actual um, press availability that the prime minister had here and bring you some moments from it. Hopefully, it's here. Huh. It kind of disappeared from my watch list, which is really interesting. But that shouldn't be too much trouble to bring it back up, given that it was on CPAC, and it will probably be top of mind. There it is. Mm, Ah, that's the problem. Okay. I was wondering why I was having ad because I have an ad-free account on not on I get to switch accounts between the show's account and my personal account, and I was on the wrong account. So I just fixed that there to make sure that we're not interrupted with ads. We bring that. Um, very big announcement from the prime minister about what's going on. We will go into the announcement itself and look at it. There's a little bit of a pre-announcement um, rhetoric that the prime minister mentions here in his speech that sometimes I skip on these, but in this case, given that we don't know much about the North and there's some historical context that is put in there, and as well some context that has to do with collaboration with Indigenous peoples, I figured it's probably uh, uh, well, figured I deemed that it is substantive enough that we should probably include it in this case because it does give us the basis um, from which to consider how significant these investments actually are. So I'm going to, all right, put this up for you. It to the timestamp. So the first part here is the Prime Minister acknowledging Indigenous collaboration, the need for it, the value of it, its importance within the context of the announcements that he is going to be making here.
I'd like to thank the members of the 440 Transport Squadron for hosting us and for your service defending Canada and our communities. Thank you, Premier Simpson, for your leadership. I'm honored. My colleagues and I are honored to be joined by Indigenous leadership from across the North and the Arctic. Your partnership has made today possible. Your partnership will be essential to moving forward from today. Indigenous peoples have been the stewards of this land since time immemorial, and only by working in partnership with Indigenous rights holders, with the territorial governments, only through that partnership can we build lasting prosperity. Only with that partnership can we build the North and the Arctic sustainably and ensure that the people of this region fully benefit from our actions. Yeah. Awesome. That's good. I've never had a drum accompaniment. That's good.
All right. So a little moment of levity included with that, of course, kits and cubs. But there again, stressing the importance of partnerships with the Indigenous community here seems to be, again, compared to with the way that he started with a C5 and sort of bulldozing through and having to come back and do the damage control, seems to have been able to incorporate that into his language, into his manner of proceeding. Of course, there were the three individual groups, and with the Inuit, of course, because their treaties are more modern, there are already some of these safeguards already embedded in them, and it's always been, as a result of that, easier for the federal government, or at least for the, I shouldn't say for the federal government, but for Inuit communities to advocate for themselves and to be able to know that they have some safeguards with regard to their participation and their benefiting in such projects because the treaties are more modern. Usually it's the other groups that tend to have to worry more because those safeguards are not exactly written in explicitly, but there are things that are more read in as time has gone by. But because those treaties with the Inuit are more modern, they've had a chance to see what the experience of the other two groups were and to say, we want this down on paper, which is very, very smart of them. But it also creates clarity for this type of engagement. The Prime Minister then goes on to talk a little bit about the historic nature of this day and the announcements that he's about to make.
This is a historic day, and this historic day has been a long time coming. 1958, Prime Minister John Diefenbaker asked Canadians to consider, and I quote, a new imagination for the Arctic. He portrayed the North as Canada's last great frontier, part of our national consciousness. Well, certainly an area that contains 40% of Canada's land mass and over 70% of our coastline is at the very heart of our nation. But you have been patient because, well, it's at the heart physically of our nation. It hasn't always been treated as such. Over my lifetime, successive governments have helped make investments in new mines and ports, roads and bridges, outposts, and sometimes satellite systems. But too often, these steps have been taken with great caution or only after long delays. Too often, the investments were made with inadequate consultation and partnership. Too often, they were made one at a time, piecemeal, not connected either to the community or to each other. In short, they lacked the scale of ambition and the depth of strategy worthy of this vast region and its peoples. That's why, in response to input from Indigenous rights holders, territorial governments, other stakeholders, last September, we referred to the Major Projects Office a transformative strategy called the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor. And since then, the so-called MPO has been engaging with rights holders, governments, partners, territorial governments, federal departments, the private sector to translate a high-level strategy into an action plan with an integrated set of projects that complement the major investments that we are now making in our defense and security in the Arctic. Le gouvernement fédéral.
So there you have that, Kids and Cubs. As you can see, the Prime Minister making a point here of going through the stages. You had your high level strategy, overall policy, and now it's going into an action plan. And the action plan is trying to make sure that previous investments, what they're announcing today, and previous announcements all sort of fit together. And that's what I keep on saying when I keep on criticizing the Conservatives when they say our plan for this, our plan for that, their plans never go down that way. There's a broad thing. We should let's get Mark Carney out of the way so that we can get those pipeline permits approved so that we can ship our oil to all those countries who so desperately need it right now, given what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. And it's sort of like, well, there is no project actually proposed for there to be a permit to push the Prime Minister out of the way to get approved. And nobody has agreed to fill those pipelines yet with anything that can be transported. And we do have an infrastructure issue in terms of getting it to the other places, and we don't have a contract signed with anybody yet to purchase it. Even if we were to do that, there's a little bit of preparatory work that we need to do before we push the Prime Minister out of the way to get that permit approved. Same thing with the MOU with the government of Alberta. There are some deadlines set for sometime in April and in July, where Danielle Smith has to come back with some of the work that she needs to do on her end to ensure that what she's doing is coordinated with the Pathways project, that what are going to be the regulations on emissions and what are going to be the carbon fees and all that type of stuff for that. What if people are going to sell their CO2 back to the Pathways project, that they can make something else from it? Is there a return from that? What kind of credits do they get from that? Whatever system that there is going to be for that, how does that work before making additional commitments? Which is why Canadian Natural Resources delayed one of their projects, right? To say, well, there's going to be a new regulatory environment that's associated with this MOU. So why would we commit to anything now until we know what the rules are going to be? These are very natural processes that take place. So when Canadian Natural Resources announces that they're going to delay, and you have Conservatives running around going, oh my God, it's again these terrible bad policies. Like, no, it has nothing to do with that. There's a process, right? It's not as simple as push the Prime Minister out of the way and sign that permit so he can start today. More has to happen. So that's what I say. It's like if there's no strategies, no tactics, no considerations, no contingency plans, no budgets, no Gantt charts, none of that associated with it, it's not a plan. It's not a plan. Right? The Prime Minister, when he talks to us, yes, at first he will come up with the high level, yes, but then puts the mechanisms in place for us to get down to those other levels, does the consultation. It's like Conservatives don't even want to consult with the Indigenous community unless they're members of the Indigenous community that already agree to a pipeline. But for those who don't, he doesn't want to do the work, says, I'll just override them because I'm the federal government and I can. Which guarantees that things go to court or get delayed with protests, right? Maybe even invites eco-terrorism or blockades. So there, as we say on the show often, sometimes it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. And this Prime Minister seems to be understanding the concept of process, particularly as it is involving Indigenous communities here. All right, let's keep on going here. The Prime Minister then starts to talk a little bit about the precursors to this announcement that make this possible.
From day one, Canada's new government has been clear that true Canadian sovereignty is anchored right here in a strong and secure North. Only 4 days after being sworn in, almost exactly a year ago today, I was in Iqaluit to announce that the Canadian Armed Forces would establish a sustained year-round presence in the Arctic to protect our sovereignty across land, air, and sea. And we've already delivered that. Today, the forces patrols the Arctic 365 days a year, including through Operation Nanook. In our first federal budget, a few months ago, we launched the $1 billion Arctic Infrastructure Fund to build new roads, rail, airports, bridges, and ports. Last month, the Minister of Indigenous Services announced new measures to make life more affordable for Indigenous communities in the North, including lowering food costs and improving access to childcare and education. And today, we are announcing a series of transformative initiatives that will help unlock the full potential of this vast region. We're moving forward with an ambitious new plan backed by more than $40 billion of investments in Canada's North and Arctic. Investments to defend our sovereignty and to deter new threats. Investments to connect, build, and transform Northern and Arctic communities. With this plan, we are taking control of our future. We will no longer rely on others to defend our Arctic security or to fuel our economy. We're taking full responsibility for defending our sovereignty, and we are unleashing a range of new economic opportunities for the over 140,000 Northerners who will benefit from stronger, more connected communities, more opportunities, and a higher standard of living.
So there you go, kits and cubs. As you can see, all the various activity that has happened preceding this to the north, in the north, I should say, to not only set the terrain for this, but of course, to also take care of the residents and ensure that life improves in the community. How effective these measures have been so far yet, I don't know. I haven't seen any data on that, so I can't tell you if the measures are indeed working. But it would seem that the measures, this is my deduction here by the fact that Ms. Idlout did cross the floor, is that the measures are significant enough or serious enough that one would be able to assume that this is a government that is at least of good faith on these issues and on these matters, and that if it's not right yet, would certainly be working to improve that and in consultation with the community, and therefore, you can't ask for perfection. That's probably not going to happen, but for someone to be at least on the right path and of good intention. And willing to work with other people and willing to admit when they fall short and include other perspectives probably is a good sign, and maybe much more than they've had before from other leaders on that front. All right, moving to the next part here. I think this is when we start getting into the good stuff about the announcement. Here he's talking about rearming, rebuilding, and reinvesting our armed forces. You will notice in that previous comment, that's where I got the $40 billion number, but it doesn't get developed more than that in this address. So I would have to look at more than that to see where how we get to greater than 40 billion and what's included in that. But in this, he's talking about the bid here to rearm, rebuild, and reinvest in our armed forces. And let's see what else, what he is announcing here at this stage.
Part of our plan to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces, we must ensure that the women and men who serve have not only the presence, but also the reach to defend every corner of this region. To that end, we are building 4 new northern operational support hubs and nodes in Whitehorse, in Resolute Bay, in Rankin Inlet, and in Cambridge Bay. And we are upgrading our national defense infrastructure in Yellowknife, Inuvik, Iqaluit, and Goose Bay. These locations are at the heart of our mission to defend our territory. What they'll do is they will enable the forces to deploy aircraft across all remote areas of the Arctic.
All right. To give a little more detail on that, kits and cubs, let me just go back to getting myself here. There we go. I'm starting to figure out the new controls here. On those two elements themselves here, there will be $32 billion at forward operating locations in Yellowknife, Inuvik, Iqaluit, and at deployed operating base 5, Wing Goose Bay. This will also build both military power and economic strength. It will enable the Canadian Armed Forces to defend the Arctic without the help of allies, allowing Canada to take control of our Arctic security. This includes infrastructure upgrades such as airfield upgrades, new or repurposed hangars, ammunition and fuel facilities, and buildings and equipment for accommodations, warehousing, IT, and general support. The 2 new Northern Operational Support Hubs, or NOSHs, NOSHs, at Whitehorse and Resolute, and 2 new Northern Operational Support Nodes, NOSNs, at Cambridge Bay and Rankin Inlet, are backed by an investment of $2.67 billion. This network will enable the Canadian Armed Forces to deploy rapidly and support year-round response across the Arctic North, no matter how remote. Let me see what else here. He also goes on to speak in French by saying that military installations will be key to increase the security of the communities in which they are located. Because they will allow more rapid intervention in cases of search and rescue, natural disasters, and emergencies, even in the most isolated regions. Also, when he talks about the airports there's an investment of $294 million in Arctic airports, including building a runway overlay and modernizing Rankin Inlet Airport and upgrading Inuvik Airport that will ensure that larger aircraft can land, connecting northern communities to the rest of the country year-round to enable faster, more convenient, and lower-cost travel for both the military and civilians. I think he might talk a little bit more about that specifically in later on in the announcement. With regards to the over $40 billion here, it says that it includes more than $35 billion in federal investments to defend, build, and transform Canada's northern and Arctic region, and the announcement of major projects that will represent around $10 billion in investment. So when you put those two together, we're looking at a plan that's backed by greater than $40 billion in investment. All right. Moving on to the next part here, he is talking about additional infrastructure supports that could benefit the community when we are as we are doing this. So there we go.
These defense investments will strengthen our military's presence, and at the same time, what they will require is new energy infrastructure, new broadband, new telecommunication services, new wastewater services. What that means is as we build these military operations, we can transform and benefit the surrounding communities. The combination of these defense investments with the nation-building projects we're announcing today will strengthen Arctic security and open new economic opportunities while connecting communities. I'll go back to Diefenbaker. He asked Canadians to reimagine the potential of the North with what he called his Roads to Resources program. He envisioned new airstrips, a railroad to Great Slave Lake, and a winding man-made line carved through this rugged terrain. Now, since then, back in the late 50s, since then, as the people of the North know all too well, climate change has only reinforced the need for action. Isolated communities in the Mackenzie Valley rely on a seasonal winter road and summer resupply barges, which are both becoming increasingly unreliable, with melting permafrost in the winter and low water levels in the Mackenzie in the summer. So right now, there is no road open reliably in all seasons. Ever since I was a kid in Fort Smith, I've been hearing about the possibility of the Mackenzie Valley Highway. And I'm not that young. For decades, there have been a series of false starts and endless assessments. That record ends today.
And as you can guess, kids and cubs, now we get to the first of the three major projects, the first one having to do with the Mackenzie Valley Highway.
Today, we're taking up the Mackenzie Valley Highway at our major projects office. This summer, we will start construction. The first phase of the all-season highway will stretch more than 800 kilometers from Wrigley to Norman Wells. The second phase will extend all the way to Inuvik. When complete, this vital artery will link Yellowknife and Inuvik, and it will cut almost in half the time it takes to drive between them. The new highway will be resilient both to the changing seasons and the changing climate, providing year-round access to isolated communities, allowing critical supplies and medicines to reach people in remote areas. It will also unlock immense potential for mining, from copper to zinc to critical minerals. And we will build this highway in partnership with territorial and Indigenous governments so that the benefits promised nearly 70 years ago are felt in the communities directly. And to be even more specific about how we're moving, we will start construction of the Oscar Creek Bridge relocation, the Christina Creek realignment, and Highway 1 targeted resurfacing, all beginning this summer.
So there you have it. Not only acting on a 70-year-old promise, pretty much, but also being able to say that work is going to start this summer, and specifically on what here. According to the pm.gc.ca website, the Prime Minister's website here, it says the Mackenzie Valley Highway will be an 800-kilometer long highway that will become a vital artery for the region, providing essential year-round access to Indigenous and remote communities in the Mackenzie Valley, building on an initial federal investment over $100 million. The road will connect Yellowknife to Inuvik and open up commercial opportunities along the route. Mr. then says in French that he will not only link the communities by land, but link them by air, modernizing the landing strip in Rankin Inlet and updating the airport in Inuvik to accommodate larger planes, which is what I read a little earlier when I was talking about everything that will be going on in those the new military nodes and hubs that are being established. That's why I was remembering I needed to read that in because he did, but he had mentioned it in French. The second one here, he then moves on to the second project that he is talking about supporting, and this one has to do with the Grays Bay Road and Port and the Arctic Economic and Security Corridor.
As we connect our communities to each other, we also will connect them to the world. Now, despite our unique strategic advantage in Canada, our unique strategic advantage in bordering three oceans and connecting those oceans. We don't have a deep water port on the Arctic Ocean. Grays Bay Port and Road will change all of that. We will build a new deepwater port at Grays Bay in Nunavut and a 230-kilometer all-season road connecting it to the territory's border. This will help unlock mineral resources and enable their easy export. We'll also work in partnership with the Kitkimiut Inuit Association to realize the transformative potential of this decades-long dream, and to connect the Grays Bay Port and Road to the wider north, including Yellowknife. We're going to refer to the Major Projects Office a new Arctic Economic and Security Corridor that will build a 400-kilometer all-season road through the Slave Geological Province to Nunavut's border. So you put that all together, we will have the first all-season road connecting Nunavut to our national highway system. Nunavut connected to our national highway system. We will have an enablement of new resource exploration and development in the mineral-rich Slave Geological Province of the Northwest Territories in Nunavut. We will have open access to new export markets so we can realize more of the potential of these multiple new trade deals that Canada is securing abroad.
So again, seeing how all the pieces of the puzzle are starting to fit together here with regard to diversifying our trade. Here in this larger announcement here, he's talking about these projects connecting Nunavut to the national highway system, as he just mentioned here, via the Northwest Territories, and become Canada's first overland connection to a deepwater port on the Arctic Ocean. Together, these projects will connect strategic mineral deposits to national road networks and tidewater, linking Canada's north to new global markets and ensuring reliable access to Canadian minerals. The Grays Bay Road and Port is a proposed all-season road of approximately 230 kilometers from the Nunavut border to a deepwater port and airfield at Grays Bay on the strategic Arctic Ocean. The project includes a deepwater export terminal for minerals and an airstrip which will both have dual-use civilian and military potential. The Arctic Economic Security Corridor project is a proposed all-season road of approximately 400 kilometers throughout the Slave Geological Province to the Nunavut border, where it will connect with the Grays Bay Road. Collectively, these projects will build the infrastructure required to advance potential copper, gold, and zinc mining projects and support increased mining exploration activity. And as mentioned, with the deepwater port and the airfield at Grays Bay, which will have dual-use civilian and military potential, that's one of the examples of the 1.5% of the 5% of NATO spending that can go to these types of projects that help get factored in to the 5%, even though they can have a civilian purpose as well and increase the economic activity in the region. It can be counted as part of our 5%. So again, you can see that, again, when compared to what we get from the Conservatives as plans and strategies, again, you can see how these ones, that how there's thought and how they work together, what must come first, what helps the next thing. Is there anything that we're building that we can get more uses out of than just that one thing? Is there things that we build that we can connect to other things in order to make them more efficient? We're now talking about potentially a deeper port in the Vancouver area for the dredging that would be required if we are going to do another oil pipeline to the West Coast. We are talking about a deepwater port in Churchill, Manitoba. We're talking about a deepwater port way up here in the north, right? And there are renovations to the ports in Montreal, the Contrecoeur port, and there are renovations to the port in Saint John, New Brunswick. So, you can see that we are, if you look at them all together and over time, we're looking at all these ways to get this additional production that we are going to be doing that's going to come down the road, that we're building the infrastructure to actually get these things out once we were able to get them out of the ground and get them processed. So again, we're seeing that this is the first layer that we need, because if we got the stuff out of the ground and then built the infrastructure, right, there would be a gap between the time that we're actually producing things and can actually ship them out, or we wouldn't be able to ship them out fast enough to meet the need. So by knowing that this is where we are going and thinking ahead of time, okay, once we have these things, how are we going to get them out? Let's build that infrastructure right away as fast as we can so that it is there. I would call it, if you're looking at the world, are you the type of person that waits until they invent color movies before you buy color TV? Or do you know that color movies are coming? So you're the first to buy color TV so you can be the first to see the color movies once they are made. And this is us adopting the second approach. We are going to have this critical mineral production and refining capacity one day. We are going to have expanded oil and LNG to ship one day. Let's make sure those ports are ready. And let's make sure that we have ports not only on the east and the west, but also on our north coasts. This guy has thought about this. He has even gone so far as to think about sequencing in order for the plans to happen with as little gap as possible. That's why I'm saying here is that when we're looking at what's going on and what Canadians get to see from Poilièvre and Mark Carney, we see Poilièvre, a man who fancies himself clever. Let's have a motion that has this little poison pill and thing that we can take, and then we can market, and then we can get our clips and say that the liberals are all bad or they don't support these types of things, and push the outrage button. It's clever and it works. It almost worked to get him to the prime minister part. But fortunately, Canadians are some of the most educated and savvy voters in the world, and we were able to catch on to him. And we were able to read the room when Trump came along. And then we have a man here who is smart, thoughtful, analytical, who doesn't talk down to us, who doesn't feel the need to put things in a catchy slogan, or doesn't feel the need to torque or distort things to make to present reality as different than it actually is in order to trick us or deceive us into adopting his position or get us to run to his position by fear. He talks to us in the language of business. He uses words like catalyze, right? He doesn't, I won't say he doesn't dumb it down. He does bring it to our level in the sense that he's not so far out in the weeds technically with the jargon that we can't understand it. But he hasn't dumped it down to grade 3 level either. Right? We have to do a little bit of work of our own here. But he trusts the Canadian public as being intelligent enough to be able to understand it. So people like being talked to like they are smart too. And people liked being talked to as if they're in on the plan. And that's not what we get with the Conservatives, right? You went to the United States. Who did you meet with in December? I don't remember. That's what we get. Or Doug Ford. What are you using your personal phone for? Let's see who you called. No, you can't have that. I'm going to go to court to prevent you from getting that information. And then, we have Mark Carney. Here's our plans for the Arctic. And here's how they all connect. And here's the timelines. And here's how much it's going to cost. And this is why we're doing it. And here's who we're involving. He shows us all of it. So it's easier to be invested in national projects and the well-being and the future of your country when you have an idea of what's going on and you have a leader that keeps coming back and checking in on you with what's going on and how things are progressing. Conservatives could learn a thing or two. All right. The next one project here that he's going to talk about is the Tallston Hydro Expansion Project. And that's of the 3 that he is sending to the major projects office so that they can be handled with a little bit of alacrity, if one would permit me to use that word. All right. Let's give the room to the Prime Minister right here.
This is a generational plan to build and connect the North, to bring security, prosperity, and opportunity to workers and families. Now, to sustain all of that growth, we need clean, reliable, and affordable power. Fuel prices in the North can reach 6 to 10 times the levels of the rest of Canada. And this just reinforces the need to transition to cleaner options. So we are going to unlock the North's enormous hydropower. In November, we referred the Iqaluit Nukik-Sautit hydro project to the Major Projects Office. This is Nunavut's first 100% Inuit-owned hydroelectricity project. It can save nearly $2 billion in diesel costs over the next 50 years, while providing that reliable, affordable, emissions-free power to people in the Arctic. Today, we're going to take another step forward by referring the Tulston Hydro Expansion Project to the MPO. Tulston will add 60 megawatts to the existing system, doubling the capacity right here in the Northwest Territories, creating a unified hydro grid that links 11 communities, powers 70% of the territory's population with reliable, clean electricity. You know, when you bring together the major projects that we're referring, they represent around $10 billion in investment and will create more than 10,000 jobs during their construction. And that is separate from the scale of the investment and the jobs created from the defense investments. More fundamentally, what we're doing is creating projects that are, if you will, force multipliers. Their construction will unleash new career opportunities, higher paychecks, faster trips, stronger communities, and they will make large investments possible by connecting the Canadian North and Arctic. Our plan to defend, connect, and build the North will reinforce Canada's strategic autonomy. That independence will also be bolstered by the new trade and defense partnerships that we are striking with trusted partners.
And there he goes on to talk about his upcoming trip to Norway and the UK. And of course, where he will be watching that NATO exercise and talking about the importance of working with our partners, not only for the defense, but for others of Arctic sovereignty and economic growth. And then we get to the conclusion of his address before the question and answer period. So let's see him bring it home.
So to conclude, when John Diefenbaker, all those years ago, set out to reimagine the North, he rightly envisioned that it required more than a stronger economy. It required a more secure border. But ultimately, it required a future where Canadians have, and I quote, control of their own destiny. Là où nous sommes maîtres chez nous. And today, we are taking major steps to realize that vision, to take control and to build the true North strong and free together. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Nous allons maintenant.
So the Prime Minister obviously getting a good reception here to what it is that he is sharing with people over there. And yes, Kit, give time rest here. The emphasis on trusted partners has been an ongoing theme in every announcement. Indeed, trusted, reliable. In his speech in Australia, I believe it is, to the Lowry Institute, legitimate or legitimacy. So nations with legitimacy, nations who are trusted based on their track records, and nations who are reliable because they adhere to some form of rules-based order. So those are the announcements. Pretty important here. A little more here for the Telston Hydro Expansion Project. We'll add 60 megawatts to the existing hydro system, doubling the Northwest Territories hydro capacity and serving 70% of residents. Of course, a lot of this goes into the previous announcements that the Prime Minister referred to here, but you'll remember that during his first week in office, Prime Minister Carney announced a new plan to establish a stronger presence in the Arctic through Borealis, advancing cutting-edge research in the artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and other frontier technology domains, while getting more boots on the ground, and making it such that today the Canadian Armed Forces are now able to maintain a permanent presence in the Arctic and the North, including through Operation Nanook. The government is already accelerating major projects such as the Iqaluit-Nunatsiavut Hydro Project and the Northwest Critical Conservation Corridor, as well as significant investments to build local infrastructure and empower Northerners and Northern Indigenous communities with better housing, education, and access to health care. And those would be initiatives such as $115 million to renew funding for the Inuit Child First Initiative until March 31st, 2027. $27 million over 5 years to focus on supporting Inuit-led community-specific approaches to eliminate tuberculosis across Inuit Nunangat. Also, $30 million to meet the current needs of the Nutrition North Canada subsidy. That will help ship food and essential items to 124 isolated northern communities, while Indigenous and Northern partners are shaping broader program reforms to better address the high cost of living and affordability challenges. An additional $6.3 million for the Northern Isolated Community Initiatives Fund to support businesses, community groups, and innovators working on practical solutions to grow, process, and distribute food locally. And of course, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, $50 million through Budget 2025, through the Budget 2025's Build Community Strong Fund to support the development of the first Inuit-led university in Canada, Inuit Nunangat University, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is going to be headquartered in, has its seat in Arviat. I believe it is. I think that is the case. Nunangat. Of course, trying to type that quickly was not particularly efficient here. But yes, Inuit-led operated post-secondary institution with its main campus set for Arviat Nunavut, scheduled to open by 2030. There we go. So all those additional initiatives that had been announced along the way. So yeah, a very major announcement with regard to sovereignty and all that kind of stuff. And of course, meeting our NATO targets and increasing our ability to export what it is that we are able to develop as we move along the government's plan to modernize our economy, to pivot a bit more away from the United States, to internationalize ourselves a little bit more. Came time for the questions and answers, and the first question was about news that came out that during that which the United States was doing in Iran, there was a military base that was hit that had some Canadians there. And all Canadians are present and accounted for. Nobody was hurt, but it would seem that there was no particular announcement of what happened there, and that has the conservatives demanding transparency and why not more was said. According to Kyle Duggan of the Canadian Press, conservative defense critic James Bazan said it's, quote, really shameful the Liberal government did not tell the public about a reported Iranian missile strike on an airbase in Kuwait where Canadian Armed Force personnel are stationed. The newspaper La Presse reported on Thursday the Canadian section of the Ali al-Salam airbase appeared to be damaged by the March 1st attack. Based on an analysis of satellite imagery, no Canadian military members were injured. Quote, this is a failure of the government not wanting to communicate, not being transparent, and not sharing with Canadians exactly how Canada is impacted by this war, Bazan told reporters Thursday. The Liberal government called to take note debate in Parliament on Monday night on the Iran war, but did not mention any attack or any damage to the base in Kuwait. The Department of National Defense took a week to respond to a March 6 question from the Canadian press about the reported airstrike. It said it does not disclose such information as a matter of policy. Quote, we are aware of reports of strikes in the vicinity of Ali al-Salam Air Base. For operational security reasons, we do not discuss assessments of damage or impacts to military facilities, D&D spokesperson Lieutenant Pamela Hogan said in an email Thursday. And considering the number of years that James Bazan has been on the defense file, specifically has been the defense go-to person for the Conservatives. He should not know this at all. This man has been in the House of Commons since 2004. 2004, 22 years. He knows this. So that he is running all around and saying that it's outrageous that the federal government did not share. Shameful when the policy of the Department of National Defense is to not share that type of information is rather disingenuous. D&D spokesperson Lieutenant Pamela Hogan also said, based on events since February 27th, efforts have focused on the force protection of Canadian Armed Forces members, including relocating some within the region, staying in their location if force protection is appropriate, and where applicable, redeploying some back to Canada. So there may not even have been Canadians at the base at the time that the strike happened. They may have been already relocated before it even happened. Hogan added that all Canadian military personnel in the region are currently safe and accounted for, but Bazan asserted that Canada's allies, including the United States, are being more transparent than Canada by holding daily briefings and discussing damage from the attacks. I don't think that the United States is the basis that we should be going on, because a lot of what they say is for just domestic consumption and propaganda, if not propaganda-ish, or propaganda-ish, if not propaganda. Quote, the government has been too secretive, Bazan said. Prime Minister Mark Carney was asked by reporters on Thursday if he could confirm the strikes and explain why Canadians weren't informed earlier. This is here, the portion of the press conference where he answers, because he was asked originally in French, answer in French, and then the person asked for the answer in English. So we don't have the question in English, but the question as asked in French translates to, in English, can you confirm the strikes happened, and why did you not inform Canadians as soon as it happened? This is what the Prime Minister say in English in response to that question. Let's put them up here.
Also, if you can confirm in English if there was this attack happened, and why did you didn't inform Canadian before?
Well, I mean, I'm not the only spokesperson for the government, but I'll just confirm that Canadian forces are, the members of the Canadian forces are all safe and sound. I reinforce, as I said in French, what you know, which is that we are not engaged in actions of the U.S. and Israel. We're not engaged in offensive actions, and we will not be engaged in those actions.
So, very terse and sparse answer. I want you to remember the part where he says at the beginning that I'm not the only spokesperson for the government, because that comes up a little later in another response. He builds on that. But yes, clearly, if we're taking the response of the Department of National Defense into account here, right? D&D as a policy does not disclose such information as a matter of policy. For operational security reasons, we do not discuss assessments of damage or impacts to military facilities. So, yes, there are reports that the base was attacked. How much damage was done, we don't know. Where Canadians, we know that some Canadians were stationed there for whatever activities they do when they're on exchange or co-located with other militaries. But we are not participating there. There's probably a good chance that Canadian members were relocated prior to this even being happened, and they weren't in the line fire at all. But even that is not information that they're going to publicly disclose, because why would you give that tactical information? Why would you make that public? So, I don't think that this is a question. You need to have some secrecy when you're in the middle of a war, clearly. But yeah, I don't think that, there was a strike on a military base where some Canadians may have been, or are known to have been, co-located at some point prior to the skirmishes and the retaliation starting, is something that we absolutely need to know if there's nobody that's been hurt. And we didn't suffer any damage to our own equipment or our own facilities or anything of the like. That's not news that you particularly have to rush to a microphone to share. I don't think that there's anything shameful about that not being shared, or that there's a lack of transparency. There are other issues at play, and I'm actually fairly surprised that James Bazan would go there, because he knows the file, and frequently comes out and makes these interventions in such a way that there's not that much to criticize. But I'm not sure he actually has a point here when it comes to that. The media doesn't seem to think, I guess, that it's that big a deal, because that was literally the only question about that asked. When it comes to this particular subject, journalists didn't say, well, that's not a real answer, and try to dig more. They seem to have been satisfied with that as a response. Continuing on, there is a little bit of a question here about the war in Iran, and wondering about the Prime Minister being concerned about broader economic damage that could be caused as a result. As you know, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. That is going to affect oil and gas prices for quite some time, because you can't just turn things on. And in certain regions, force majeure has been declared by the companies. So there's that, but it's also going to affect fertilizers as well. That region of the world is indeed very important to the global food supply with regard. Global food supply with regards to fertilizers. According to Nicholas Mulder of the who's a Cornell University economics historian, urea in particular, which is a very important component in fertilizers, is that region is an important source of it. I think they have like 1/3 of the world's urea that comes from the Persian Gulf. And also urea, ammonia, and sulfur, which are three key ingredients in fertilizer, according to Jim Crane, who's a fellow in Media Energy Studies at Rice University's Baker Institute for Public Policy. He mentions that when it comes to the sulfur part, 45% of the global supply of sulfur, because they have, when they extract their oil and gas, they have highly sulfuric oil and gas, and they are able to keep that sulfur and use them in fertilizers. Well, 45% of that global supply comes from there. And that sulfuric acid also is used in making chips and in the refining of metals. And with regard to the oil and gas from the Persian Gulf as well, there's helium that is gained from the process of liquefaction of LNG, and that also is an important input for chip manufacturing, for chip foundries. So you can see other places where costs can go up. Petrochemicals as well, because there a lot of the products there are precursors for plastics, and it's also a major hub for aluminium production. So these are all things that could impact costs of basic things. And when we're talking about basic things, we're not only talking about the cost of food production itself because of the fertilizers, but anything having to do with shipping, of course, because shipping fuel is also rising. I think it was the day before yesterday, crude oil was trading again at some point over $100 a barrel, and it is currently trading at $94.58 a barrel. So that is going to, we're already seeing the price at the gas pump, but it's already showing up in other places as well. The Prime Minister, when it comes to that, has an answer with to the broader economic impacts here for you. So let me just give you back the full screen with the Prime Minister, and you can hear what he has to say.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister David Baxter with the Canadian Press. What's your level of concern right now about broader economic damage, be it in Canada or globally, with the war in Iran and oil price shocks that we've been seeing over the last week?
Yeah, well, this is an important question, something we're tracking very closely. The longer this goes on, the greater the disruptions in energy markets, and you're right, in oil markets. Very importantly, natural gas markets. 20% of global LNG supply is now trapped in the Gulf, so that will have knock-on effects, particularly in Asia. We are seeing the implications of this for fertilizer, for example. So there is ultimately down the chain around the world a potential impact in fertilizer, food price planning, some other sectors. Critical minerals development related to soils. There are a series, the longer it goes on, the greater the dislocation, the greater knock-on effects, the greater global economic impacts, without question. And from a Canadian perspective, we have strengths, many strengths, including the fact that we are a net energy exporter. So there is some offset to Canada because of this. But a world where the global economy is slower, that affects us. A world where gas prices are higher, gas prices are affected by global markets, that's an immediate challenge for individuals, so if it stays up. And also a world where I'm going to simplify it, but the cost of money, financial conditions are tighter, interest rates are higher, stock markets are lower. That also has knock-on effects. We start from a position, so we are watching this closely. We are working at several dimensions to respond. One is directly with respect to the conflict, talking to allies, partners, other countries in the region, a wide range of active participants and interested parties, if I can put it that way, to try to contribute to the conditions that can lead to a de-escalation of hostilities. So that's number one. Secondly, working with particularly the G7 in terms of providing some relief to energy markets, but that needs to be kept into context. The scale of the disruption to energy markets is much bigger than what can be offset through, for example, the release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Making sure, thirdly, that Canada is supplying everything it can to commodity markets, to energy markets. And then fourth, is moving forward with our economic plan, delivering tax cuts for Canadians. It's great to see the legislation finally making it through for the budget through the House of Commons, delivering on projects like this where we are masters in our own home. In other words, and I'll finish on this, what the challenges in the Middle East, what the war in the Middle East reinforces. The world's more dangerous and divided. We need to protect our territory. That's what we're doing. Secondly, it reinforces that we can be hit from shocks from abroad, economic shocks, your question. We need to invest at home and be strong at home. That's what we're doing. And it also reinforces that we need all forms of energy in order to be resilient. So yes, oil and gas, and we're developing those in a responsible way, but also clean energy. And part of today's announcement is to finally get the North off of diesel, whose prices are going up and are already much more expensive than they are south of 60, if I can put it that way, and to clean, reliable energy.
And just to follow.
All right. So there you go. You have a comment here from Kat here. You wouldn't think fertilizer would be so high when it comes from here. Indeed. And for what it is that we grow here with our own fertilizers, maybe that would be, maybe those things won't be as affected. But of course, you know, there are certain months of the year here where we don't grow so much and where we tend to import more of our food. It is actually normally cyclical. For example, in our inflation numbers, to see the prices of food go up in the winter when we're importing more of our product, for example, than when we are growing it ourselves. And that's one of the reasons that if we're going to have a sovereignty strategy, it does need to focus a lot on food production. We're probably going to have more greenhouses and more year-round indoor vertical farming operations and things of the like in order to be able to resist those costs or not be at the mercy of them so much. But anything that the world is using, again, right, if the fertilizers aren't coming out, and then you get scarcity. So that if we're talking about supply and demand, that raises the price. And, you know, yes, for ourselves, we could probably sell ourselves our own fertilizer, but for any food that we buy that comes from elsewhere, that's using other fertilizers. And, you know, the fertilizer that we would probably be selling to the world, we probably be selling it at a higher price too, even if we gave it to ourselves at a lower price for our own purposes, our own domestic security and food security purposes. But everything else would be affected. And when I mentioned, you know, shipping rates and freight rates and air travel rates and all the ways that we get to things, trucking rates, all of those are going to go up with the cost of fuel rising as well. So, and that, you know, all works itself in to the final price that we end up paying. So, yes, we can avoid some of it, perhaps for our own domestic production. But for anything else, we will definitely be at the mercy of what's going on here with global prices. Let's see if we've got, yes. Before we move to the next clip, in there, the Prime Minister makes a mention of Bill C4, which passed yesterday. And that is a bill that is going to bring a little bit of relief to Canadians. to a certain extent, because it was Bill C4's the Making Life More Affordable for Canadians Tax Act. Making Life More Affordable for Canadians Act, which received Royal Assent yesterday, which includes the middle class tax cut on which the Prime Minister ran, lowering the first marginal personal income tax rate from 15% to 14% since July 1st, 2025. Nearly 22 million Canadians will benefit from tax relief up to $420 per person, saving two-income families $840 this year. The bulk of tax relief will go to those with incomes in the two lowest brackets, those with taxable income under $117,045 in 2026, including nearly half to those in the first bracket, $58,523 and below in 2026. Canadians whose 2025 income was not subject to payroll deductions will realize this tax relief this spring when they file their 2025 income tax return. That one has passed. I believe in the first year it's being lowered to 14.5%. And then I think it goes to 14, but I'd have to double check on that to be sure that I remembered that correctly. And this was a tax proposal, if you remember, during the election, that the Conservatives and Liberals had competing tax proposals, and that the Conservative tax proposal at first was more generous, but when it came time to present his costing right prior to the debate, Pierre Poilièvre changed his tax policy in order to offer you less than what Mark Carney had proposed. So we have that going on. Just trying to find the CBC article here, and I cannot find it off the top of my head right here. Go to the actual website because I was hoping it would happen would come to me a little easier. So that's the first thing there. It's also the bill that formalizes the elimination of carbon consumer pricing, that thing that Pierre Poilièvre kept on trying to provoke fear into the Canadian public by saying that the government didn't really mean it and never to pass it. It is indeed passed, and it is now a law with a royal assent here. And it will also have the first-time homebuyers rebate, which is the elimination of the GST for first-time homebuyers on new homes of up to $1 million, and reducing the GST for the first-time homebuyers on new homes between $1 million and $1.5 million. This tax cut will save Canadians up to $50,000, allowing more young people and families to the housing market and make the goal of homeownership a reality for more Canadians. The rebate will generally apply to agreements of purchase and sale entered into or after March 20th, 2025, and before 2031. With royal assent of the bill, the Canada Revenue Agency will now be able to start processing rebate claims. The Conservatives wanted that to be had an alternative plan for what it was going to be. And if you did the math, if I remember correctly, the Conservatives were actually offering something that was maybe a little simpler to understand, but that also was offering you less than what the federal government was offering here. And then, of course, there was a third part in that bill that had nothing to do with finances, but that had to do with how political parties handle your personal information. And there was a clause in it that granted an exception to political parties to whatever rules there were on the handling of personal information. I do not know any more specifics about that, only that Elizabeth May was not happy with that provision that political parties should be exempted from those rules. It seems that none of the other parties seem to have had a particularly major objection to that. I wonder why. Again, political parties excluding themselves from regulations, just like I'm reading here. Doug Ford wants to try to pass some legislation in Ontario that would exempt himself, cabinet, and I guess some senior staffers from freedom of information requests. I have a feeling that that is going to be challenged in court relatively quickly. But yeah, Doug Ford acting a lot like he's got something to hide, eh? Doesn't want us to see the mandate letters, doesn't want us to see his phone records, does government business on his personal phone to try to make them out of the purview of scrutiny. And then when he's caught doing that, doesn't want to hand over his phone records, and now seems to want to exempt himself and cabinet and others from freedom of information requests. Premier, cabinet ministers, parliamentary assistants, and their offices. Why do you need to do that? Again, what are you doing with that other hand that you need us to not have access to those documents through freedom of information requests? That's a little sketch. It's rather sketch, actually. This here is when I told you to put a pin in the answer about he is not the only one who speaks about speaks for the government. This is the quote here, or the answer to the question that I wanted to show you, because the Prime Minister is about to go on vacation, which brings the inevitable question: how could you go on a vacation at a time like this? You're needed, right? As if the job of Prime Minister isn't 24/7 and he's always on call, no matter what. But I want you to hear this answer, because he does something that I haven't seen very many leaders do.
Up on that uncertainty, of course, we're just talking about the missile strike on the base in Kuwait, the strike on the base in Kuwait. Canadians are seeing the effects of the war here at home, with the price of the pump going up and up and up. And it's been reported that after this trip is concluded, you're going to be on vacation for the next week. What's your message to Canadians who are worried about just the state of everything going on the uncertainty, as you're going to be less publicly visible after this trip is done?
I'll be, well, if it doesn't actually work out to a week, it's the first thing. Secondly, I'll be working through this weekend with the military exercises in Norway, meeting with our partners, meeting with Chancellor Merz of Germany. I'll be meeting the UK Prime Minister on Monday. I will be having a series of conversations during the week. I will be as visible as needed and as connected as always. As well, I reinforce that one of the strengths of this government is we have a very strong cabinet. And one of the, I would like to think, one of my characteristics as a prime minister is I give authority to my ministers. So there's a reason why you hear a lot from the Minister of National Defense, from the Minister of Foreign Affairs, from the Minister of Public Safety, because they are very much on the front lines of these issues, much as I am. Thank you.
Next question.
So they're sharing some credit with the team, sharing responsibility, of course, with the team. Given that we have seen so many leaders in the past who are a bit more party of one or one-man show, this is a bit of a refreshing take on it. I'm not the only one who speaks for the government. So, if I'm not around or if I'm not available from somewhere else, other people have the authority to speak for the government, and I trust them to speak for the government. That's why you keep hearing from them a lot. That's why they're so front and center. So again, showing that there is a bit more of a team mentality here. Kit Linda going, he's only taken 1 week, and not even that. He could probably use more. Yeah, he could, and he deserves more. he has been putting in the work. Absolutely. No doubt about that. The next question here is from CTV's Judy Trin, who asks a question about his upcoming meeting with King Charles III and the fact that Indigenous chiefs have met with the king recently.
Prochaine question.
Judy Trin with CTV's. Prime Minister, your office says you will have an audience with King Charles following your meeting with Keir Starmer. The Treaty 6 chiefs spoke to King Charles about their concern that Premier Danielle Smith has not denounced Alberta's separation. Is that a topic that you will also broach with the King?
Well, let me say a couple of things, that, if I may, Judy. Which is, first, is that His Majesty, in all my experience, takes an intense interest in the rights of Indigenous peoples, Treaty 6 territory, Treaty 7 territory, across the Arctic. He will be very interested, and foremost, just by his nature, I know this, in terms of what we're talking about today, the progress that's being made, what's coming next, the impact of climate change on the North. These issues are front and center and constant for him. The second thing is that, it is, there will be a form of readout of the discussion that we have. I don't want to prejudge the discussion that we have. He had quite a fulsome discussion with the Treaty 6 chiefs, I know, in the last 48 hours, and there are many subjects for him and I to raise. Thank you.
Now, on that subject here, or not on that subject, but subject of this particular journalist, there's something I want to highlight to you, kids and cubs, and it's a tweet she put out with regard to the floor crossing of Lori Idlip. And hopefully here I have successfully been able to change the screen like I would want, because I'm trying to show that I'm learning this new system. And I am. Yes, I did it. All right. And here it is. She mentions here, full scrum with PM Carney on luring MP Lori Idlip from the NDP. Carney does not answer the questions about whether Liberals are respecting the democratic process. They've now poached 4 MPs, including 3 from the Conservatives, currently at 170 seats, 2 away from majority. And I'm reading that tweet, and what came to me, and we are not journalists, but it seems to us here at the show that usage of rather loaded terms such as luring, which every time I hear luring, I think of somebody in their car, asking a child if they would like some candy or help them find their lost cat or dog. Luring doesn't have a positive connotation. It's like hovering. Usually when somebody says somebody's hovering, I think of they're hovering over the body. Right? Luring and then poaching. Again, when I hear about poaching, I think about people who poach elephants for tusks. Right? They are not positively connotated words here. So it seems to me that use of loaded terms such as luring and poaching leads one to picture perhaps a more dramatized than the actual version of events that happened. And it also diminishes the decision-making power of MP Idlip. If she was lured, if she was poached, what free will did she have, really, when she made the decision to cross the floor? It could just simply be that, yes, she was hearing from her constituents, and there was people reaching out from the government and asking her if she would want to join. And after some serious consideration, given everything that's going on and the support that she was seeming to have from her constituents, she made the decision herself. Yes, she may have been, somebody may have made a pitch, but it doesn't mean that she was lured or poached it is possible that she had the capacity all on her own to come to the conclusion that she could better serve her constituents there, and just made the leap, knowing that the other side would be receptive. So, yeah, luring, poaching, words matter. They give tone, color, and texture to events. And I understand that you want people to read your story. But like I said, dramatizing the events. Because, I mean, nobody was in the room when these conversations were had. Would those conversations be accurately described? Would the outreach be accurately described as luring and poaching? Or are there maybe some less loaded terms that can be used? Right? Made an offer. Indicated they would be receptive to. Think I know that we're telling a story, right? And we want people engaged with what we write. That's fine. But verbs matter. Verbs matter. So yeah, just thought it would be a moment to point it out, since we were talking about the journalist in question here. There's a couple of other questions that are asked. One of it is about the state of poor northern infrastructure there, and Prime Minister gives an answer to that. I don't think it's necessarily critical to what we're talking about today, but it's an important question, considering if we're drawing a contrast between this Prime Minister and Prime Minister Harper, for example, who went up to the north every year for 9 years and made a big deal of it. For all his trips out there and all his talk about Arctic sovereignty, he didn't really deliver that much for the north. Right? You know what? I am going to present the answer, Prime Minister, to this question to you, because he does something in the answer I just remembered that is actually really neat, and I'm not sure I have heard another leader specifically address it or acknowledge it as openly. But the Prime Minister here, in his answer to the question, the thing that struck me is that he is very, what about it? He is not at all unwilling to acknowledge the fact that there is indeed an infrastructure gap in the north.
Follow up.
In regards to your announcement today and this focus on defense investments and this strategy, can you give us a little insight as to why there is not more investment on housing, schooling, education for people in the north, for Indigenous communities that lack these resources? And when you head over to Norway and you meet with the Nordic Five, you will see that they have fantastic housing. Nuuk has 6 hospitals. They are Arctic communities. Why is it that Canada doesn't have those resources?
Well, a couple of things. One, this is a very important question. So let me pick up a few aspects of it. First, we are making major investments in housing in the Arctic. I'll point to the example of the 700 homes in Nunavut that we announced 6 weeks ago. The construction of those as part of building additional housing. Here in the Northwest Territories, we're working with the territorial government on that. More will be needed and more will be delivered. Okay, so that's the first point. Second is, and there is a deficit. Maybe that should have been the first point, which is to acknowledge the infrastructure deficit that exists across the North and in the Arctic. And this government is determined to close that deficit meaningfully. So that's why within the first few days, I was I was in Iqaluit. That's why we're here. That's why I was in Fort Smith a few months ago. And we're continuing to focus on closing those deficits. Some of the benefits of, for example, some of the benefits of what we're announcing today will be major additional infrastructure investments in the north, additional health facilities, additional wastewater facilities, telco, and schooling and beyond. And it's a weird term, but it's dual use because it's relevant both for the military personnel who come, but also for the communities. And if you look at the communities where these what are called network operating hubs or nodes, where they're going, these are in northern terms quite large communities and have quite large spillover benefits. Your question's well motivated. We've got a big gap to make up. This government is focused on closing that gap, just like we're focused on closing the gap on the military side and our sovereignty as a whole.
Next question. Question.
All right. And then to go to the last question here that I have for you, kids and cubs, the Prime Minister is asked about how it is that he can be so sure that at least the construction on the Mackenzie Valley Highway will be starting this.
Next question.
I just want to go back to this announcement, and I'd like more details on how you can guarantee construction on these major projects when they've only just been brought forward to the NPO. So if you could share some more details on that, and then just a little bit of information on what the costs of some of these major projects would be.
Okay, so in terms of, and there's a couple aspects of it. One is a project the scale of Mackenzie Valley will have a series of approvals, environmental approvals, other approvals for various components. And I talked in terms of phase 1 and phase 2, but even within phase 1, as the Premier well knows, we talk about this a lot, actually. There's various components of phase 1, some of which are more ready than others in terms of process, in terms of rights holder participation and benefit from them. So we can move forward on those as we're finalizing environmental assessments and others for the other components. That's first thing. The second thing, I'm going to widen your question for a second because I want to raise a fundamentally important issue, which is that the scale of what we're talking about with the military investments, these network operating hubs and nodes, and these major projects is enormous. And so there's a need to sequence and augment the construction capacity in the north, right? So one of the things we collectively have to do is make sure, first and foremost, the people of the north are benefiting for the construction, they're engaged, they're in it, they're part of it, but also that the equipment is available, it's in the right place at the right time, and it's sequenced across a very vast land. So there is a huge project management element to all of this for each project, but then it as a whole. And then in terms of the dollar values of the projects, if I'm going to simplify, there's more detail in a backgrounder which you'll get, or if you haven't received it already, but I'm going to simplify that the military components of this, 32 billion plus a bit more for dual use runways, for example, in Rankin and others. So effectively 35 billion. Again, more detail will be provided out. But then if you look at across Tulston, Mackenzie Valley, both legs, the Arctic corridor, including the port, it runs to north of $10 billion for all the components of it. Phase 1, phase 2, bringing everything back. If you think of everything ultimately being connected back here to Yellowknife, plus the ports, plus the hydro, which also gets connected back to Yellowknife. So it runs in that order of magnitude. At this stage, final point, which is that, as you say, well, let me just make the point. At this stage of the process, some of those estimates will become more refined because you're not at a final investment decision point, but those are the orders of magnitude.
We'll have time for one last question and follow-up.
So there you go, kids and cubs. Prime Minister, again, being able to give a very fulsome answer to the question because, number one, and 2, knows his file, came prepared. Again, contrast with the party opposite. So some very exciting news for the North, probably the most substantial announcements of investment, if not the most substantial announcement of investment in the region in my entire lifetime. It's nice to see the North finally getting some love. They've been waiting for quite too long already. And hopefully there will be more to come as that part of the nation becomes ever more important and increasingly big player in our economy as the years go by. But for now, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps all about us and please share our content if you can with a little word from yourself as to why it resonated with you, because that is advertising we cannot buy. It is priceless. And we thank you each and every time you do that. Now, if you'd like to help us in other ways, kids and cubs, you can scan this QR code that will bring you to our YouTube page if you are not there already. And if you are there already but haven't yet clicked on our subscribe button, could you please do that? Because that helps us with the algorithm and allows people to find us a little more easily. And while you're there, why not smash with our like and share buttons as well? And if you want to say it share, S-H-A-R-E, or share, C-H-E-R, whoa, we're fine with that. The share button, you press it and it starts playing If I Could Turn Back Time. Or if you watch Will and Grace, Tao, Tao. My word. I kill me sometimes. I'm never bored. I amuse myself a lot. All right. And that could come out wrong now that I just said that. Okay. We don't need no rails. So please do like and share our content. We really appreciate that, and we like it when you click on our buttons here on our YouTube page. Also, kids and cubs, if you would like to help us in other ways, you can make a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund, as we affectionately call it, at our coffee page. That's ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, where you can make either a one-time or recurring monthly donation if you'd like to sort of consider it as a membership, and because you think what we do has some value, and you believe it deserves some financial support so that we can keep going, because we are fully independent, and it is through our contributions of our own money and donations from you that we are able to have this venture and keep it going. We're getting close to starting our 6th season, kids and cubs, sometime in April. So a lot of these ventures peter out way before the 5-year mark, and we're still here. So, and that's thanks to you and your love and your support and your dedication. And hopefully we can be able to count on that for years and years to come, because this is something I intend to do for quite a long while, if you will, damn fam, keep having me, that is. And I know that Mr. Grizzly feels the same. So we thank you for your ongoing and stalwart support and encouragement in the forms of lovely cups of hot chocolate and beaver moistener for your favorite beaver, because one, you are what you drink, hot chocolate. And of course, a moist beaver is a very happy beaver. And I am very happy today. So there you go. Thank you for making me happy. Kids and cubs, let's see. That is oh yes, of course we have super chat and memberships on our YouTube page, which of course, to reiterate, donations through YouTube, we get 70% of your donations through our coffee page, we get 95 to 97% of your donation. And if you're doing the Buy Canadian thing and don't want any of your donation to go to either a PayPal or to YouTube, US-based CE Tech Bro that donates part of your money back to Donald Trump. If you would like to donate to us in other ways, you can do a direct bank transfer from your bank to ours. That's a completely Canadian transaction. We get 100% of your donation. And there you go. It's really just that simple. And you can do that using our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, please do not worry, because the gifts of your attention and participation are the ones that matter the most to us. And you can use that very same email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, to not only make the bank transfer, but to let us know what it is you think about the show. Give us your compliments and your constructive critique, your guest suggestions. And I've been reaching out to a few, because I've had a few on my list. And there's another person that I've been trying to get for a very, very long time. And we weren't sure that he would be able to, because of his employment. And I just got a message yesterday that it is indeed a go. You are going to love him. Another person that is very smart, super informed. And I'm sure that we are going to have a very engaging conversation, and likes to cut through the BS like we do. We are very excited to be able to get him on the show. And Kit Bucky, if you're still out there, I'm sorry. I know that you've sent us something previously, and I haven't been able to follow up on it. But we do want to get you as well, again, because of your diplomatic experience, and that we can talk about that type of world to our kids and cubs. So if you would be able to send me your contact information again at our email address, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. And I promise to be able to follow up with you very shortly. Life sort of just got away from me for a little bit at the time that I asked you the first time, and I wasn't able to follow up as I wanted to, but the desire is still there. I hope you did not take our lack of follow through as a sign of disinterest. Nothing could be further from the truth. So hopefully you can get that back to us, and we can follow up relatively shortly. All right, because democracy is something that you do, kits and cubs. Oh, I forgot to mention, if you want to write to us, of course, we have the comment section down here on our YouTube page. We have our socials on the Jitter, on our Blue Sky account at True Eager at both, True North Eager Beaver on our Facebook page. We also have an Instagram, thanks to Kit Uncover. And of course, we have the Damn Fam Discord to keep the conversation going after. If you want to join that, just ask in the chat. I'm sure that those who coordinate that would be happy to give you the address to get there. There's also a link, I think, at the bottom of the show description of the show. And of course, we have our Substack. Again, not as active as we would like it to be as of yet, but there's only so many hours in the day. But I'm hoping to eventually, when I get a few other things under control, to be able to start populating that a little bit more. But lots of ways to be in contact with us, and we do read everything you write, even though we're not able to answer everyone. And we thank you for your contributions, because they all get factored in, and to make the show better. Because as I keep on saying, it's not only our show, but it's your show too, and we are a community. So, yes, we do like to lead the way, but we're happy to follow when the Damn Fam has some suggestions or some content that they would like to see, and we are able to make that happen for you, because we want to give you what you're interested in as well. All right, kits and cubs. Yes, Para Hockey Canada plays China this afternoon in their semifinal. Come cheer on Team Canada. Indeed. Yes, indeed. Almost one of those comments almost bordered on TMI. You are absolutely right, kits. You are absolutely right. Was not my intent, however. Was not my intent. That's only because you may have inappropriate minds, which of course makes me very, very, very proud of you. The kids, they grow up so fast. Proud Beaver Papa. The ability to think of the most inappropriate thing to say or do at any given time is something, a part of my personality that I cherish. Fortunately, I don't do it or act upon it, but I often think about it and then smile to myself where I'm very amused and pleased with myself. So if you've got that kind of mind too, you're my kind of people. Let me just put it that way. Put your X for Jerry Boyle. um, Kids and Cubs. So yes, let's see, because democracy is something that you do. We have by-elections coming up April 13th, of course. Make your plan to vote. Call Elections Canada if you want to volunteer at a polling center. The date is April 13th. Early voting, I believe, is the 3rd to the 6th. And if you want your mail-in ballot, you have to order it before the 7th. If you are an NDP member, voting is on right now for the NDP leadership. You can vote by mail, of course. And of course, if you are going to the convention on March 29th in person, you can vote in person there. Again, if you're voting by mail, make sure that you vote in time and put it in the mail so that your ballot gets there in time to be counted. We have the public rail consultation for AutoTrain, autotrain.ca. That goes on until March 29th. If you have any thoughts about the high-speed rail project that you would like taken into account, there's the time to do it. And of course, what else do we have? House of Commons petition 7148. You go to ourcommons.ca and look for petition E-71C8, or you click the link that I'm just going to make available for you right here in the show chat. And that is a petition to try and encourage the House to make it such that all party leaders have to get their NSICOP level security clearance, because one of these things is not like the others and still refuses to get it and pretends he's going to be gagged if he does, which is not true. So yeah, we have to kind of make that happen. And we are now at 39,759 signatures on that one, hoping to get well over 40,000 because it closes for signature on April 7th. So please tell your family and friends about it, and please give them the link and ask them to sign. And remember, when you're signing in a House of Commons petition, not only do you have to sign it, but you get a confirmation by email that's sent to you. And you have to click on that as well, because your signature doesn't count until you sign and confirm. And finally, Kits and Cubs, if you are inspired by our Paralympians, in particular, maybe Natalie Wilkie, who just scored a second gold for Canada at the Paralympics, or perhaps you've fallen in love with our Canadian curling team, wheelchair curling team, who created a Paralympic history by going a perfect 9-0 in the round robin, being the first team ever in the Paralympics to do that. And from what I've heard, I didn't get to watch the semifinal this morning. It was a little too early for me, but I was going to watch it this afternoon. But I did see the result in the chat. It might be, well, if you haven't seen it yet, it might be well worth your time to watch it. And that's all I will say. But if you would like to help them, there's the Fill the Stands promotion where you can make a donation to the Canadian Paralympic Committee to help that grow, to help the movement grow. And I'm going to put the link to that here in the chat as well. I was watching some Paralympics coverage yesterday, and I saw that they mentioned it during the show, which was good as well, to get people to donate. And it is doing fairly well so far. We're at 11,669 seats purchased and $291,600 raised to date. I'd say we're probably well close to the 60% point of sales here of all the seats. So hopefully there will be a final push near the end. Pardon me, I have to cough for a second here. Put on my cough thing. There we go. So yes, please donate there if you can, because we're getting closer to the bigger team event medals. There might be more people watching and more people willing to donate, but it would be nice to see us be able to fill the stands, and that the Canadian Paralympic Committee can maximize the amount of donations that they were seeking this year. All right, Kids and Cubs, words of wisdom, and I realized I forgot them yesterday. Maybe I've forgotten for the past couple of days, actually. But words of wisdom, Kids and Cubs, I would say, as we're entering the weekend, if you have the opportunity, because it's been the last couple of weeks have been rather news heavy and there's been a lot going on. If you have the opportunity to do something good for yourself, maybe to disconnect for a little bit, that would be something I would encourage. Now, of course, I am preaching something that I probably won't practice myself in terms of disconnecting. I'm even thinking perhaps of doing a bonus show over the course of the weekend because there's still a lot of news and there's a lot of things I would like to get to. And if I'm going to have a couple of interviews coming up, that leaves less days for doing news, fewer days for doing news. So I might do something this weekend. If I do, please, there will be a posting on the post section of our YouTube page and on our socials, letting you know about that. And I will um, do the programming for the show well enough in advance so that people get the notice. I won't just decide to randomly just go live with no notice there if I do something. So yes, I might be doing a little something, but if not, and all that kind of stuff. If you have the opportunity to disconnect or, like I said, treat yourself to something, um, you're worth it and you deserve it. And the news a little bit heavy, so why not have a moment of actually being kind to yourself? Because if you are not, uh, who will, right? If you want it done, if you want it done well, do it yourself. All right, kids and cubs. That's all I got for you today. At the count of three, may I please hear you say, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock. 1, 2, and 3. Oh, yes. That is very, very lovely and melodious. And therefore, I cannot resist. I must serve and slay, but I must serve. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, and just a little brief reminder, in addition to the Paralympics, for those of you who are baseball fans, Canada, for the first time, has made the playoffs at the World Baseball Classic. And in the first round of playoffs, they take on the United States tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, if that's something that you would like to tune into and cheer on Team Canada. That's all I got for you now. If I don't see you on the weekend, I will see you on Monday.